Hey everyone, welcome back. In the last video we talked about user input, and today we are finally getting into the good stuff. That's right, we're going to talk about if statements. Now this is a very, very important concept and you're going to see it a lot throughout your coding journey, so I strongly recommend that you grab a pencil and paper, you open up a VS Code window, whatever you need to help you understand this. Now, if statements are essentially a way for you to make decisions in your code. And if you want the formal definition, they are a fundamental programming command that controls program flow by executing a block of code only if a specific condition is true. So, let's write out a quick little template to help you make sense of this. And every single step is important. First thing you're going to do is type if. Keyword if. This is necessary. No ifs, ands, ors, or but. You need it. And it's going to let Python know that the next, what's coming up on the line and beneath it, is going to be part of an if statement. Alright, and so it's going to be if a certain condition is true. So for right now, we're just going to use the placeholder condition, followed by a colon. And now, notice that as you press enter, it is going to automatically indent for you. So, going off on a brief side tangent, other languages use curly braces. And these curly braces help the IDE understand what code should be where. It's essentially saying, okay, all of this code is related to the if statement. However, Python does not use curly braces. Instead, everything is going to be organized by indentation. So if you do not have an indentation here, and you start writing right here, it is not going to know that that is part of your if statement. It's going to assume that that is after your if statement. And I'll show you an example of how this looks in the code later. But for now, let's go back. You can do a tab to do an indent. And in this section right here, this indented section, you're going to have code that runs if condition is true. Now, if the condition is false, it's just going to jump right down to the next line that's outside of the for loop, or outside of the if loop. How do we know that it's outside the if loop? It doesn't have the indentation. Now, what's an example of a condition? Starting off really basic, let's say if 5 is less than 7. If you remember from our expressions and operators videos, this is one of them, the less than sign. So if 5 is less than 7, let's see. Let's print, there we go, print 5 is less than 7. We run it. Oh, look at that. It printed out 5 is less than 7. Because it read this, it determined that this statement right here is true, so it's going to execute the code in this following block. Now, what if we wanted to say if 5 is greater than? Let's change this to greater. Refresh our terminal. You'll notice nothing appears, nothing runs. That's because this statement is false. 5 is not greater than 7. So it's going to skip to after the if statement. We have no more code, so our program terminated. Just for visualization, we'll print here the previous, or we'll say done. Let's keep it simple. Run it again. You'll see that done prints. So it's essentially skipping this block of code. Now I really want to emphasize the indentation part. So if I put this inside the indentation, like that, and I again click run, it doesn't print out. That's because it is associated with this statement right here. Now if I want to do this, you're going to see it recognizes that this is an error. And there you go. It's even going to flag it for you. So you kind of have to remember it, but at the same time, Python's going to do the job for you. The issue is to note that the following lines beneath it, if you want them to be there, also need to be indented. Otherwise, Python's not even going to notice that there's an issue. So let's get a little bit more advanced now, because I know what you're thinking. This is really simple. Why would we ever need to do that? We know that 5 is less than 7. So let's say we're going to take in some user input, someone's age. Age equals, and since we're going to be using our operators and comparing them, if we want to use the greater than operator and we want it to do it correctly, we're going to want this in the form of an integer. So age equals, cast it to an int. Let's get our input. What is your age? So now we have the variable age that is holding the user input. And let's say we want to make a decision. Let's say we're going to figure out if the user is over 21 or under 21. So if age is greater than or equal to, because let's say, legal, greater than or equal to 21, colon, we have our indentation. Let's print out legal. So let's type in our age. Let's type in 21, exactly 21. There we have it. It's printing legal. Now, let's perform a little experiment here and see what happens if we didn't cast this as an int. What is your age? 21. There you go. Another error between comparison operators. So let's put that back. And what if you want something to happen when it is less than 21? Well, you could make another if statement, but if there's only two options, there's an appropriate kind of format that you want to follow. So we're going to say, if age is greater than or equal to 21, print legal. Else, colon, print illegal. So now if I enter in an age, I enter in 30, it's going to print legal. I run the program again. I enter in 15. It's going to print illegal. So you can see it's a very, very, very clear line of logic. 30 is greater than or equal to 21, so it prints legal. 15 is not, so it's printing illegal. Now, there are other operators that we can use. We don't just have to use greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. And one that I want to touch on specifically is the equal equals operator, because there's a very, very, very common error, which I'm going to talk about. So let's say grade. We have a grade. Grade equals, cast it to an int. Let's get our input. What was your grade? Now, let's say we want to congratulate them only if they got a 100. So, if grade equal equals, remember, it has to be equal equals because this is the assignment operator. You see, we use it up here to say that grade is this. But equal equals is asking, does grade equal this? That's just something you gotta remember. So if grade equals 100, print congrats. Let's run it. Let's say it equals 100. Congrats. Let's run it again. Let's say we got a 99. So close, but since it is not exactly 100, it's not going to say that it equals it. Another one is the not equals operator. So it's essentially the reverse of the equal equals operator. So we have not equal. That means that this is checking if grade does not equal 100. Now this is kind of reverse logic, and it can get a little bit confusing. So this is going to evaluate to true if grade does not equal 100. So what do we want to say? We want to say better luck next time. All right. So we run it. Now I'm going to say that our grade does equal 100. Therefore, this statement is false. And it's going to skip it. Remember, this statement is only going to evaluate to true if grade is a number anything other than 100. And you'll see if I run it again and I put 99, it evaluates to true. And it seems a little complicated at first, but trust me, you will grasp this in no time. So, you've seen just one if statement, you've seen two if statements. What happens if we want to make a decision involving 3 things, or 4 things, or 5 things? So let's revert to this. If grade equals 100, print congrats. The keyword that you're going to use here to let it know that it's going to be checking against multiple different things is elif. So let's say elif grade is greater than 90. Whoops. All right, print grade A, elif grade is greater than 80, print grade B, elif grade, and this can go on forever and ever and ever. Let's say if it's greater than 70, print grade C, and then anything less than a 70 is failing. So else print fail. Whoops, put it in strings, quotes, right? And so notice that for elif, you need to have another condition there. But for else, that's saying for all other cases. And else can really only appear at the bottom, because Python is going to check these one by one by one. And let me just show you. So if I wanted to say my grade was 100, it's going to cross-check this first statement, and it's going to say, yes, it is a 100, print congrats, and skip all of these. Skip all of them, because these are all kind of in their own chunk together. It's really useful if you think of it as a chunk. This whole thing right here, it's all working together. So if I wanted to say that my grade was a 95, it's going to check this. Does it equal 100? No, it doesn't. Move down to the next level. Is it greater than 95? Yes, it is true. So essentially, anytime that this statement, or this statement, or this statement, or this statement, so on and so forth, anytime it's false, go down to the next elif. And if all of these are false, we're going to reach this else statement. So if I wanted to say my grade was a 67, you can see it prints fail. In simple terms, it is checking each condition from top to bottom and stops when one is true. And I just want to point out that when doing these, it's very important that you pay attention to the logic that you want to use. Because let's say I switch these. Let's say I said if grade is greater than 90, print, let's take this, print congrats, or print grade A. But if grade equals 100, print congrats. And so if I run this and I say grade equals 100, it's only printing out grade A. You're probably wondering, like, why does it do this? Why doesn't it print out congrats because grade equals 100? Well, remember, it's going to go until a condition is true, in which case it is going to cease all statements. And since this first statement is true, the grade is greater than 90, it's going to print grade A, and so it's going to skip this elif statement, right? But I want to make sure that you know this. It's not going to skip all if statements in your program. It's just going to skip the ones associated with this. And that's why you use elif, because it's a keyword to let you know that it is in relation to the previous if statements. I could have another if statement down here. Print that. What was your grade? 100. And you're going to see this one is true, so it cuts out of all of this, and it goes down here to this if statement because it's the following code, and it's going to print congrats. Now for the very last tidbit of information, I know this is getting kind of long. Just want to mention that while it does need a condition, your condition could be the keyword true or false. So if you want this to run every single time, you could say if true, print this works. It prints this works. Now this is essentially useless because it's going to happen every time regardless what happens in the program. So a more useful approach is to use a Boolean variable. Let's say our Boolean variable, x equals false. We're going to ask for user input. We could say, well, we won't do that. That's making it too complicated. Let's say if x, what this says is if x is true, do this. Print works. And so right now, since x is equal to false, there we have it. It's not going to print that. Oh, would you look at that? Remember in Python, do not define your variables. Let's get that out of there. So we have our Boolean variable x, it's false. Run it, not going to do that. Change it to true. If x is true, which it is, it's going to print this out. So we should expect to see it. There you go. And it seems pretty useless now, but once you start writing more complex programs, you'll realize the power of Boolean variables, and you can use them to kind of keep track of your information. But we'll talk about that in a later video. So now it is time for your challenge. Okay, so I have your challenge down here, but I just wanted to add some useful vocabulary. If statement, condition, else, elif, comparison operator, indentation. I went over all of this, but sometimes it helps to just see it written out. Strongly recommend you write this down. But now onto your challenge. So I want you to ask the user for a number and then print whether that number is positive, negative, or 0. So if you want to go do that on your own, there you go, but I'm just going to talk about it for a second, give some pointers. So you're going to ask the user for a number. You're going to want to convert that to an int so that you can manipulate that number. Then using your less than operator to find out if it's negative. If it's less than 0, print negative. If it's greater than 0, print positive. Else you can print 0. So go ahead, write the code for that, and in the next video, hopefully should be pretty short, it's going to build off of this and talk about logical operators that you can use to make your if statements a little bit more complex. Alright, well, that's the end of this video, and thanks for watching.